Hello everybody in Taiwan, it's Lange.
Okay, so can you make a self-introduction?
Yes, I'm Lindsay. I'm the warehouse manager at Glenallachie Distillery. I've worked with Billy Walker now since 2006. So I've been with him at Benriach Distillery. I was with him at Glendronach Distillery, Glenglass Distillery. And he also had a bottling plant called Newbridge Bottling Plant, and now obviously in October 2017, Glenallachie, which is the most exciting of all the distilleries I've been at.
So how does it feel to manage 16 warehouses in a whiskey distillery?
Well, I mean, in terms of managing the casks, the wood, that's very, very important. You look at the price in commodities and the price of any material nowadays has certainly increased. Price of casks have always been quite high anyway, and to be fair, if you want your whisky to live a good life, a long life, and a full life, you really should spend a lot of money, spend high-end money on high-end casks. So the management of wood is very, very important to whisky. Some people say potentially up to maybe 80% of the finished product, the magic happens in the actual wood itself. So it's vitally important to manage the wood correctly.
Is the amount of the cask still 50,000 or is the amount increased?
The amount of casks we can hold at Glenallachie is just under 100,000.
Oh.
And it's actually reduced. It's reduced from what it once was, simply because we have converted certain warehouses. There's certain warehouses on site that housed palletised stock. Not our stock, we don't own the stock in these warehouses, but these casks are kept up on their end. We believe the best way to mature whisky is on its side. You increase the ratio of wood to spirit contact, and again, if you're paying a lot of money for casks, you should at least use the whole inside area of a cask. So we've now converted palletised warehouses, which were casks on their end, to warehouses where you put the cask on its side. But in doing that, you sacrifice space, you sacrifice the amount of casks you can store. So our capacity is probably now down at maybe 85,000 casks.
Oh, so when Billy acquired the Glenallachie, it was 50,000, and now it goes to 85.
The cask space available on site was up at probably 97,000, but not all the stock was our stock. But you're right, in terms of what Billy acquired, he owned about 50,000 of the 100,000 nearly that was available.
So can you tell us more about the Scottish cask? Because I think it's very rare. I barely see people using that cask.
Yes, well, Billy Walker himself, he was an organic chemist a long time ago when he started out in his working life. And I always like to think there's still a bit of the scientist left in him. He does like to do various experiments. In some respects, we have quite a few different virgin oak styles in terms of Scottish oak. We have various other oaks, quite a few other types of virgin oaks that we're experimenting with at the moment. I don't want to give you too many details of it at the moment, but there is very, very many, and you will see them on the market very soon. In terms of the oak itself, it is very, very rare. It took us a long time to get these casks, and now we've got them. We have had the one release. There probably will be a future release on these, but again, not quickly. As I've stated, it is important that you do spend a lot of money on the type of wood that you're using, but at the end of the day, you can't rush things along. There's not any shortcut. The whisky will be ready when the whisky's ready. So, regardless of whatever oak you use, the important thing is you give the whisky time, and it'll be ready when we decide. But yes, there's quite a lot of other up and coming experiments that you will see, and they will be released. So it's something exciting to look forward to in the future.
So why is the Scottish oak so rare and so special? Because I didn't find many resources on the website.
I suppose with a lot of different types of oak, the problem might be how easy it is to work with, how easy it is to construct. I mean, you probably hear about certain oaks, Mizunara for example. It's a nice oak, it's really nice, good for the whiskey, but to work with, it's susceptible to leak. You have to keep a close eye on it. The one thing I suppose you would say about a cask, any type of cask, is the one thing it should really do, it should hold liquid. I mean, it's important that it holds liquid. It's all very well filling a cask and buying a top quality cask to make sure the interaction between the actual spirit and the wood works well. But at the end of the day, it has to hold that spirit for there to be an interaction between them. In terms of Scottish virgin oak, it might be difficult to work with, it might be difficult to cut, it might be difficult to make casks with. So many of the times you'll find that these are the reasons why an oak might be rare, because of this. So I would assume that was the reason.
So speaking of the Mizunara cask, I only know that it's very expensive. Do you think its reputation is well deserved? Do you think many people who are craving for that cask is really because of the cask is so good?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you're right in what you say. Again, with something like Mizunara, sometimes with a cask, most people will say like we fill a cask once or twice. Some people fill their cask 3 times, 4 times. We do only fill a cask twice. So we'll maybe fill an American bourbon barrel once. It will be used, and the second time it gets filled, it will be used. But there is no third time after that. It's finished. In terms of the Mizunara cask, you can sometimes use that repeatedly more than once or twice, and it gets better.
So the more time it used, the better it tastes?
Not to a point.
Okay.
There'll be a point that it comes when it doesn't, but you can get maybe 2 or 3 uses out of that cask. So maybe that's one of the reasons the price is high as well.
So can we talk about the Chinquapin cask? Why is that so rare?
Well, I mean, again, it's probably down to how easy is the wood to work with, how much is available. The Chinquapin comes from the Midwest, I think it's Missouri area. You probably have to cut this cask the proper way along the grain. It probably isn't easy to construct. Even to purchase this cask, maybe some companies don't have a use for these casks.
Okay.
I mean, they're pretty unique, the casks. Some people maybe stick to tried and tested methods. They don't want to sort of push boundaries. And as I say, we like to experiment on lots of different styles. So I would say we would look to buy more Chinquapin in the future, certainly use it.
Okay. You know, if the whiskey is in the Chinquapin cask, is it very easy for them to soak the flavors of it?
Yes, it's a good question, and you're right, you have to be careful in terms of with things like Chinquapins or certain virgin oak casks, because they can extract flavour, they can extract colour, etc. very, very quickly. And somebody might say, well, that's a good thing, but as we always say, there's no big race, there's no big hurry here. Put the whiskey in the cask, put the cask in the warehouse and just leave it alone to do its thing. But there is a danger with that type of cask. Most whiskies, again, you just leave it and it lives that long, slow life. But with sort of virgin oak type casks, things like Chinquapins as well, they can move quite quickly, maybe too quickly. So yes, you really, really have to keep an eye on them, because they can go too far. They can become almost overpowering. You might actually have to put the brakes on and slow the maturation process down slightly. But no, it's a good question.
We were talking about what flavors would the Mizunara cask bring to the whiskey. So, and you were saying there's no particular flavor, or
again, with casks, I mean, as I was saying, yeah, of course there's flavour, but if you were to buy, as I say, 30 casks, 30 muscatels, 30 Madeiras or Salas, and then you filled all those casks with the same whiskey, filled on the same day, put in the same warehouse next to each other. The good thing about a cask is, and this is why you get nice single casks, is you might then find those 2 casks, the 2 muscatels for instance, filled with 10-year-old whiskey. One of them you might think, well, it's far superior. So that's probably why you fill small batches, but you can find some very, very nice surprises. I've seen occasions where maybe 2 of the same type of wood cask has been used,
Yes.
and you've maybe went to sample or you've nosed a cask, and you've nosed this cask and you thought, what a wonderful nose, and then you've went to nose the next cask, the nose hasn't been as good. But when you go to taste it, the one with the excellent, the great nose on it doesn't taste as good as the other one. So again, that's the uniqueness of each cask. You can't always predict what you will get from a cask, but it's a good thing. It's exciting, and you will find some real sort of hidden gems sometimes in the warehouse.
On average, how many times would a cask be used here in GA?
Well, again, it depends on the type of cask, but for instance, our whiskey quite often will start its life in a first fill bourbon or a second fill bourbon.
Okay.
So that cask has been used the first time round with whiskey in it, or a second time. After that, the cask's kind of dead to us. We won't reuse a cask a third time or fourth time.
Okay.
At that point, they'll go back to the local cooperage. We'll maybe sell them on to a larger company, and we'll just replenish ours with more new first fill bourbons. Sherries they're becoming very, very expensive now, but we won't grumble about the price. It has to be paid, and it is a price worth paying. It's a false economy to try and cut back and save money on cask. Pay the full rate, pay a good rate, and as I say, you let your whiskey live a very, very good life. Regardless of how long that life is going to be, it should live the best possible life it can. So again, with sherry casks, we would use them probably twice as well. Some casks, maybe wine casks, a wine cask we maybe only use it once, but when you do fill, for instance, a wine cask, you're not going to have a problem you might encounter with like a virgin oak, where you have to monitor it. It could mature very quickly, it could go too far. But a wine cask, we might only use a wine cask once, because when we do fill it, we might leave it for 5 or 6 years. So it only maybe gets used once, but for slightly longer. And the chances of you overpowering it or going too far on the style of whiskey, on the finish, is slim with wine casks.
So after this use, you sell this wine cask to that other companies as well?
Yes, they'll go back to the sort of local cooperage as well, and then they'll distribute them to other companies.
Okay.
And as I've said, it would cost us probably a lot of money constantly buying first fill. We don't obviously buy second fill barrels, because we already have first fill barrels that become second fill. But somebody might say, well, it costs a lot of money to continually be buying first fill. But then, as I said, we're not a massive company, we're not a huge company. We don't have to buy massive amounts of casks, so it's a price worth paying.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's pointless going through the motions of maturing whiskey. If you're not going to do it properly, there's no point doing it at all. There's no point something sitting for 6, 7, 15 years if it's went in the wrong direction. Do it once, do it correct, and just leave the whiskey alone.
Absolutely.